Ang susunod na programa ay rated PG. Patnubay at gabay ng magulang ay kailangan sa mga batang manonood.
Good morning mga kapamilya, mga kapuso at mga kapatid. Pag may taong healthy, may taong may sakit. Pag may taong loyal, may taong may kabit. Pag may salamat, Doc, may you're welcome, Doc. You're welcome, Doc. You're welcome, Doc. You're welcome, Doc. Sa umagang ito, ating itatackle ang the Addison's disease. So ano ba ito? Sa madaling salita, ang the Addison disease ay isang sakit na kung saan ang adrenal gland ay hindi nakakaproduce ng enough hormones para sa ating katawan. Malalaman natin more about the Addison disease sa babalik na You're Welcome, Doc. Stay tuned. You're welcome, Doc. You're welcome, Doc. You're welcome, Doc. Maligayang pagbalik sa You're Welcome, Doc. Sa umagang ito, may guest tayo. Isang survivor ng Addison's disease, si Mr. Barney Socobos. Mr. Barney, isa ka pong survivor, di ba?
Opo, sir.
So how did you know po na may sakit ka na pala?
Namalayan nila na may kakaiba akong nangyari sa aking katawan, kaya ng pangingitim. Humina ang aking katawan, at bigla rin ako mahilig kumakain sa mga maaalat na pagkain.
Ganun pala. Kailan po ba ito nangyari?
Nangyari ko ito lumipas na ng 5 taon.
So, 5 years ago?
Opo, sir.
How long did it last?
Tatlong taon.
So, lumipas ng 2 taon na gumaling kayo?
Opo, sir.
What were the long-term and short-term effects po ng sakit?
Kaya rin sinabi ko yung mga yung pangingitim, at nag-hyperventilate rin po ako.
Ganun po ba? May kapamilya pa ba kayo na nagkasakit na ganito?
Wala po, sir.
So, hindi po siya inherited?
Sa akin po.
Sa'yo lang. So, ano po ang posibleng naging dahilan kung bakit kayo nakaganito?
Napag-trip pa lang ako ng mga mas namang tao at binabatulang ako ng baseball bat at natamaan ako ng dito sa
Yung kidney malapit?
sa kidney at pinalitan.
So, ano pong treatment ang nadaanan niyo para gumaling?
Hormonal replacement.
Saan pong paraan? Injection? Painom?
Injection po.
Injection. Maraming salamat po. So, yun po, mga kapamilya, mga kapuso at mga kapatid, ang istorya ni Mr. Barney Socobos. Sa ating pagbabalik, ating i-interviewin ang isang eksperto, isang specialist ng Addison disease, si Mr. Coratan. You're welcome, Doc! You're welcome, Doc! You're welcome, Doc! Welcome back to Your Welcome, Doc. So, si Mr. Dr. Coratan ay may appointment po sa ngayon. So, ang ating magagawa ay tawagan po siya.
Hello, good morning, Doc. We would like to ask a minute of your time. May we ask, can you elaborate to us what the Addison's disease is?
Addison's disease is a type of adrenal gland failure in which the adrenal gland fails to produce the body's necessary hormones. To know more about the Addison's disease, you must first divulge into the parts and the hormones that the adrenal gland produces. The adrenal gland has 2 important parts, the medulla and the cortex. The medulla produces catecholamines, which controls your fight or flight responses, while your cortex produces 3 types of hormones. Firstly, aldosterone, which controls your water retention. Secondly, the cortisol hormone controls your stress responses. And thirdly, your sex steroids help in reproduction. There are 3 types of clinical features in relation to Addison's disease. One is cortisol deficiency, some symptoms are fatigue or hyperpigmentation, which is the discoloration of your skin. Secondly, you have aldosterone deficiency, which has symptoms of low blood pressure or craving for salty foods, which is the patient's main problem, as he tends to eat more salty foods. Thirdly, we have sex steroids deficiency, loss of libido or sex drive, and the menstrual irregularities of women.
So what are its possible symptoms and possible treatments, doctor?
Now, what causes Addison's disease? There are a few, namely, 1. It can be autoimmune adrenalitis, which is the B cells and the T cells attack the adrenal gland. 2. Infections such as tuberculosis or fungal infections. Or even, thirdly, drugs such as midotane and ketoconazole. Now, how do you treat this disease? There are 2 ways of treating this disease: hormonal replacement, or in case of an adrenal crisis, like it is already a life-threatening occurrence, then we use that kind of treatment. For the hormonal replacement, for the cortisol, there is the prednisolone. For the aldosterone, there is fluorocortisone. Those are given in small doses. For the adrenal crisis, it is a lifelong procedure in which large volumes of intravenous dextrose is to normalize saline solution, such like that, or it's constant monitoring of the adrenal gland and the hormone it produces. It's the most dangerous type of treatment we must do. So we have another. I used to have patients who have done these types of treatments, and there is another disease that is like Addison's disease, the Addison's disease. One is abdominal tumors, which affect the adrenal gland directly by having tumors grown in it. It is one of their treatments used like adrenal crisis, just in case, because we usually find these tumors late, when most of my patients did. And the adrenal gland is something special. Some people say they can live without their kidneys, but to be honest, I think they should just keep their organs. Everything is important in your body. As you can see, even the smallest of hormones can affect how your body reacts, so take good care of yourself.
Thank you, Doc. Thank you for your time.
Huwag kayong umalis! Magbabalik pa ang You're Welcome, Doc.
You're welcome, Doc!
You're welcome, Doc!
You're welcome, Doc!
Welcome back to You're Welcome, Doc. Andito po ngayon si Dr. Eslao para ipaliwanag sa atin ng mas malalim ang Addison's disease. So, Doctor, pwede mo bang i-explain ang sakit na ito sa scientific na level?
The Addison's disease is triggered when you're bitten by a bat, and it travels to the receptor, specifically the mechanoreceptor, and it goes to the afferent neuron or the sensory neuron, where it belongs the peripheral nervous system, and it travels to the interneuron, which belongs to the central nervous system, which is the brain, and it travels again to the afferent neuron or the motor neuron, which is more likely there is a autonomic division. And after that, it goes to the adrenal gland, which loses or produces unnecessary.
Doc, paano po ito nakaka-apekto sa aking sistema?
Hormones are very important to the body system. The Addison's disease hinders from the making of hormones. Without hormones, the body system cannot function well.
Salamat, Dr. Eslao. Aking mga kababayan, sa pagbabalik ng You're Welcome, Doc, ating kakausapin ang isang endocrinologist kung ano ba ang relasyon nito sa sakit na ating tinatalakay.
You're welcome, Doc!
You're welcome, Doc!
You're welcome,
So nakikita nyo ngayon si Dr. Mark Garcia, isang endocrinologist. So, Doc, what is the relation of the nervous system to the endocrine system?
So when it goes to the interneuron, it goes to the hypothalamus, which the hypothalamus produces or make nerve cell, what we call CRH, or the corticotrophin releasing hormone, which is an hormone involved in the stress response. Then it goes to the bloodstream when it goes to the anterior pituitary gland, which releases ACTH, or the adrenocorticotropic hormone, which is a hormone that stimulates the release of another hormone called cortisol from the cortex, which goes to the circulatory system to the target organ, which is the adrenal gland. Then the adrenal gland will release cortisol and aldosterone, which in the cortisol releases the primary stress hormone, while the aldosterone is a steroid hormone that regulates salt and water. In this scenario, this is what we call the normal cascade, wherein it is a sequence of successive activation reaction involving an enzyme or hormone characterized by a series of amplification to the initial stimulus. The hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, or the HP axis, is one of the hormone cascade, which is an interaction between three glands that ultimately regulates lots of your body's daily processes like digestion, sexuality, immune response, and how it handles stress.
So, Doc, ano po yung organs na naapektuhan?
Ito ay ang adrenal gland, kung saan it produce hormones that give instruction to virtually every organ and tissue in the body. It affects your mood, growth, metabolism, tissue function, and your body response to stress.
So, Doc, what is the survival rate of patients who suffer from the Addison's disease?
1 in every 100,000 suffers Addison's disease. The mean ages that is affected by the Addison's disease is 75.7 for females, while for male is 64.8 years old, which is 3.2 and 11.2 years less than the estimated life expectancy of male and female.
Thank you, Doc.
Thank you.
So ngayon mga kapamilya, mga kapuso at mga kapatid, ating aalamin kung paano nakarelate ang genes sa sakit na Addison disease. Ating tatawagan si Dr. Echivare.
Good morning, Doc. We would like to ask you a few questions. So, first of all, what are the main modes of inheritance of genes, more specifically, diseases in this case?
The mechanisms involved in the inheritance of genes includes autosomal dominance, autosomal recessive, X dominance, X-linked recessive, and mitochondrial. Those are the 5 basic modes of inheritance of genes, or more specifically, the inheritance of diseases.
So, how is protein synthesis relevant in this scenario?
The production of ACTH, or adrenocorticotropic hormone, highly depends on protein synthesis. Protein synthesis helps to stimulate to acute ACTH to produce glycosylate proteins, in which it is needed for the adrenal gland to produce the hormone cortisol. It also helps to somewhat cure Addison's disease little by little.
What about the relevance of DNA replication?
In the case of Addison's disease, DNA replication is very vital, in which it helps the multiplication of chromosomes to pass down information from the mother cells to the daughter cells to code for ACTH, or also known as adrenocorticotropic hormone.
I see. Thank you, Dr. Chibarix.
So ayun mga kapamilya, ang the Addison's disease. This has been Dr. Boyd Mendres, your host. Special thanks to our guest doctors. This has been your welcome doc.